What's going on, Bryan College Station? Welcome to episode 90, season 6 of Talking Throws podcast, Texas style. I'm Coach Jason, and I was appointed for her to be Coach Janelle.
I'm You're waiting on me to be Coach Janelle.
Yeah.
I am Coach Janelle. He forgot who he was there for a while.
Yes, we are throws coaches with the track club at Thorn Factory. You can go to our website at thornfactory.com to check out our bios. If you're needing lessons, private lessons, shot put, javelin, hammer, we're the club to go to. We have different locations and different coaches all throughout the Metroplex and throughout the state of Texas. Just go on our website, thethornfactory.com, and we'll be able to take care of you on that. Thank our sponsors for season 6, Texas Track and Field Coaches Association, ttfca.org. I think the Meet of Champions has been moved to Texas State, so thanks to Coach Frazier for allowing that to happen. I think that will be in late May, I believe, are the dates. So go to ttfca.org for more details on the Meet of Champions. Fourthrows.com, quality implements priced right. If you use the code TalkingThrows10 to get 10% off. Anything track and field or anything throwing, go to fourthrows.com. The hills will take care of you. Porta dash circle right here. Really good training tool. We use these every day at practice. We just had some bad weather. What a great tool to use to put it in the garage, in the hallway, whatever you need to get the reps that you need. Porta dash circle. Use the code TalkingThrows10 to get that 10% off. Ready Up Athletic Development, ran by Zach Phillips. If you go to his site, a site called Train Heroic, and search basic throw strength, the site is called Train Heroic, and the workout is called Basic Throw Strength. This program is designed for a multi-sport high school athlete who's looking to get in tracks and field, but also does other sports. This program is set up for that individual. Throws 10 to get 20% off. Throws 10 to get 20% off. And then also to Fiber Sports Discus, our guy Bruce Caldwell, pretty cool tote bag. Put it on. Hold it like this, a necklace. Yeah, I'm gonna do the rest of the show like this.
Burn around your neck, get
So,
shop it in a discus.
And then also a big shout out to the person that handles all our printing and bordering, Big Frogs of Colleyville. Guys, today's guest is a legend in the world of track and field. Mr. Glide himself. Currently owns Champion Firearms in College Station, Texas. In 2004 was inducted into the Texas A&M Hall of Fame. He currently sits third all time in their indoor and outdoor for shot put records. He was a 3-time All-American, or 3-time NCAA champion, while throwing at A&M. In 1992, he won the gold medal in the Barcelona Olympics. In 1993, he was a world champion indoor. I think it was in Toronto. And then also he is a graduate of Houston St. Pius out of the Houston, Texas Metroplex. Please welcome to the show the greatest glider in U.S. history, maybe, Mr. Mike Stulce.
How's it going?
Oh, I'm doing good. How about you guys?
We're good.
We're well. Thank you so much for being on, man. This is like meeting Michael Jordan for me. Yeah, so I have to get this out of the way. So, crazy story, but a true story. Now, you're not going to remember this at all. I was 14-year-old freshman in high school, about 6'2", about 285, and threw 55 feet. My freshman year in high school, I come to I don't even know the name of the meet on the Texas A&M campus. Okay? And so you might remember this, you might not. You and I believe Randy and somebody else were out throwing. We got there so early that my coach brought me over there and watched y'all throw. And y'all kept throwing, and finally the ball, and y'all kept walking out, getting your shot puts. And so I walked around and actually started retrieving your shot puts and giving them back to you. And I did that probably for about 5 minutes until my coach told me to stop. and so at the end, y'all didn't say a word. And you looked at me and just kind of gave me a nods up and said, thanks, and then walked on.
What year was?
Sorry, say that
Say it
again.
again.
Do you know what year that was? Do you remember?
It was 86 because I graduated high school in 91. It's 86, 87. Yeah.
Yes, probably year than at A&M. I'll be darned. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, I will never, ever, because we drove a yellow dog bus down there. I'm from Kilgore, and my head track coach ran at A&M. He's a cross country guy, graduated there like in 70, 75, and he was a big Aggie, 12th man foundation and all that type of stuff. And I actually got to throw in the meet the following morning. I didn't even throw good. I think I wound up throwing like 48, 49 feet. It was bad. But yeah, but anyway, so that was my legacy story, to meet you. So.
Oh, great. Well, thanks for having me. It's an honor.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you. So.
Yeah, well, we are so excited to have you on. I don't have a story of watching me throw the shot put. I'm sorry. I'm from Happy, Texas, so I was a little more the other direction. But so tell us what you're doing now. Like, we're going to start from the back and then kind of go back to your history. So what are you up to these days?
Work way back. Yeah. My wife and I own a gun store and an indoor shooting range in College Station. So that's what we've actually done ever since, I've stopped throwing. We've been here.
Wow. Do you just own the one store? Or do you own like a chain?
Oh, just the one. That's all I can handle.
Nice. What led to that business avenue?
It was I know the general population of College Station has changed a lot since I was in school, but after we were done, my wife and I were both throwers at A&M, and so we both enjoyed shooting. She grew up in Montana in a small town, and she hunted like, crazy. And then, growing up in Houston, we had to go to the country to go out hunting, obviously, but, I enjoyed shooting. And so it was the one thing that we both enjoyed, that we both could actually agree on the do, instead of having to move to Houston or Dallas or something else, and so that's what our passion was, I guess. Besides throwing, we love shooting.
Oh, wow. Can you tell us your wife's name?
Katie.
Kate. Okay.
What did she throw at A&M?
She threw the javelin, but she blew out her shoulder, her freshman year, and never got to take a single throw in a meet. So she went 4 state championships in the javelin in high school to, not being able to throw at all. So had 2 reconstructive surgeries, and then, it's one of those things, but part of throwing.
Oh, for sure, especially in javelin. Y'all kids?
We do. We have one. We have a 9-year-old. We waited late.
Yeah, wow.
What keeps us busy. Yeah. How about you guys?
So any plans? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
How about you guys?
We're happily married a little over 3 years.
It hasn't been 3 years yet. Yeah.
Okay, more like 30.
Right to the marriage game. So
yes, both. Yeah, I've felt at it a lot. I've had a lot of sector fouls. So
we'll see how this one works out. It's still like, in the prelims.
Yeah, you have a gold medal. This is my gold medal. So
Awesome.
Yeah, for sure. So you're doing business. Are you still involved in any throwing currently, training, doing anything like that?
No, I'm not. My nephew was throwing the shot there for a while. I was trying to help him out whenever, I could. And then did a track camp here, I guess, about a month ago or so at A&M. A&M or a coaching academy. They have a group of folks, really super nice folks that are trying to encourage coaches to actually get out there and, fill the void. Because apparently from talking to them, there's 3,000 coach deficit this year in the state of Texas alone. So it's, need for coaching for sure.
Wow, interesting. So, okay, so we got what you're doing currently. Let's back up all the way to the young fella, junior high. How did you get started into throwing, and kind of what was that initial experience like?
Throwing for me was an afterthought. It's not that, I enjoyed watching the Olympics. My mom was a huge Olympic fan, but I was in football, basketball, baseball, and, track and field just never really factored into it. And then my sophomore year, I had a knee injury in football. And so it was a bone chip that came out from the top of my femur. And after basketball season, I couldn't take it anymore. Went to the doctor. He said, look, it's got to come out. We got to do surgery. And so did surgery, and turns out the healing up for that took longer than anticipated. I missed spring training for baseball, and the baseball coach, basically told me that, hey, just skip this year, go ahead and work out, get ready for football. And then one day I was in there working out in the weight room, and the defensive coordinator, also to the track coach, comes walking through the weight room, and he said, Stulce, he goes, what are you doing here? And I thought, oh, I'm not supposed to be in there working out, And so I said, well, coach, I said, I was just doing a little workout here. Is that okay? And he said, no, why aren't you on the diamond? And I said, well, because I'm out for the baseball season. He says, oh, well, congratulations, you're on the track team. I said, what? He said, yes, sir. He goes, be out at practice tomorrow for the shot put in the discus. And so, I went out, and at first I was kind of like, oh, I was terrible at it. I just didn't, from being a baseball pitcher to now picking up a shot put, trying to throw it, that was a completely foreign concept for me. And so I struggled, but I ended up getting third place at the state championship, in a small 3A school. I threw 48 feet, and which I was tickled with that. Then won two state championships, after that. And then I quit football, basketball, baseball, and stuck with.
Wow. So you didn't pick up the shot put until like in your high school in your junior year?
I didn't until my sophomore year. Yes, sir.
Sophomore year.
Wow.
Wow. So did you transition early because being a pitcher, a multi-sport athlete? What position did you play in basketball? What position did you play in football?
In football, I was a defensive end, and I was also a guard. And also in basketball, I was the center. We didn't have a very big. I'm short, relatively speaking. I'm only 6'4" compared to I played against Akeem Olajuwon's brothers in high school. Here's guys that were 7 foot tall, 6'9", 6'10". I was the dwarf out there, trying to keep up with them. And so obviously basketball wasn't going to be in my futures, but I love playing it. And baseball was my parents both wanted. Even though I excelled, in fact, I had already had colleges looking at me at my sophomore year in football, but I really wanted to play baseball. And so that was kind of, my parents and my passion. And I think when I told them I was going to stick with track, they were pretty upset, but, they were very supportive.
I'm
and then
sure.
After that, I'm the biggest track parents you could ever imagine. So
yeah. Did you throw the discus also that
I did.
sophomore year? Did you just go out there and pick up the shot? You did throw the discus. How was that?
Discus was good. Even though I love throwing the discus, I knew the shot put. I had a feeling that the shot put was for me. I won, my junior year, probably in my senior year, I won state championship in the discus, but, like upper 170s, 180, wasn't anything, too exciting, but I threw 65 in the shot, my senior year in high school. So that's what A&M recruited me for. That's what, a lot of colleges recruited me for, was throw the shot, not so much the discus.
Wow. So was your defensive coordinator, track coach, was he your throws coach?
He was. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Did he have a background in throwing? Because that's a 20-foot PR.
Yeah, it's impressive.
He did. In fact, sadly, he's a great guy, but he and a bunch of the coaches there, I went to St. Pius out of Houston. And so they had all gone to, take a job at another school. And so the track coach that came in, the head football coach, the athletic director that came in, was a guy named Archie Hayes. And Archie had actually, I don't know if you follow football, but he had actually been close to and was really close to Gary Kubiak, and so Gary Kubiak had gone to A&M, and that was the connection, and so in fact, A&M gave me a scholarship based on, basically Archie, because they were talking to him about as far as what kind of skill level I had. And he said, look, I don't know anything about shot putting. He's basically picked up a book in the Houston library with the Randy Matson, illustrations there. And that's how he figured out how to throw. And so at that point, that's when they said, okay, you're hired. You're on, so.
That's a pretty cool story. So, you said initially you had trouble with it, but you progressed. So were you starting out like with the shuffle or like just a basic stand throw, or was he an aptitude to, okay, he's such a good athlete, let's kind of create some kind of glide to, from back to the front?
I think for at the time, I think it was pretty decent technique, you know, but it was pretty ugly. I mean, my technique was awful up until my senior year. And then, you know, I started to get some concepts down. I'd actually gone up to U of H, you know, U of H was recruiting me. And then Tom Tellez, if you remember him from U of H, and you would never think that Carl's coach would ever know a thing about the shot put. But I was in there throwing one day in the indoor facility they had, or is it more like a gymnasium is what it was. And so he stopped there in cowboy boots and he says, "You're doing it all wrong." He said, "Watch me." And he actually showed how to rock off the heel, you know, as far as in, you know, kind of like what became the stretch reflex, you know, what I understood to be the stretch reflex. And then a light bulb clicked off and I was like, okay. And so literally I jumped up 5 feet by a sprint coach teaching me how to throw just a little bit of tips. So
in his cowboy boots.
In his cowboy.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. So is there any part of your highlights of you know, winning those state championships that was, you know, like sticks out in your memory where you know, you had some bad throws or you were just feeling on that day? Is there one event of those state championships that kind of sticks out in your memory?
You know, in high school, I think it was one of those things to where the Texas relays always has to stick out as far as being the big one for high school athletes. Where I threw, you know, in the public school meets, there were a lot of great throwers. But when you got to the Texas relays, the best of the best were there. And I ran across a guy named Billy Sims, you know, and I think that really kind of set the bar for me. That was at another level. You know, instead of beating most of the kids I was throwing against by 5 feet, here's a guy that's basically beating me, you know, pretty handily. I'm throwing 63, 65. He's throwing 66, 67. So, you know, it was something that really set the bar up. And Billy wanted to go to A&M. In fact, A&M had offered Billy, but, you know, he played football too. And so he never really made it to, he went to New Mexico, something like that. And so never, but I remember us sitting there at the Texas relays. And when he found out that A&M had offered and A&M had offered him, he was like, "We're going to be thrown together. Man, that's the place I want to be." But I found out later that, you know, football was his thing. So.
Yeah. Is well, now you had to be recruited by other schools as well. I know you talked about Kubiak and going to A&M, but is there anybody else besides Houston maybe that you took a trip to in that recruiting?
You know, it really wasn't. In fact, the odd thing was there was at the Texas relays, for example, my mom was sitting in the stands there, and there were several other, I think maybe might even been, I don't know who the name was because my mom didn't know, but it might have been Art Venegas. I don't remember at the time because I beat him, but I didn't know who the UCLA coach was, but she said that there was a bunch of other coaches that came up, talked to my mom. And then when my mom said U of H, they backed off like, okay, well, you know, we're good. We're not going to mess with Tom Tellez, you know, type of, that's what it was. And then when A&M, you know, came along, in fact, it really wasn't the fact that A&M had approached me. It was my coach had actually talked to the A&M coach. And he was like, "Hey, let's take a drive up to A&M. He goes, you know, it's a great school. And he was the one, you know, Coach Hayes was the one that really kind of sold A&M to me. And then when I got up to A&M, that was, you know, for me, that was it.
Wow.
I knew that.
Was Coach Parker there at the time when you were there as a freshman?
He was. In fact, he was, that might have been his first year as on his full-time staff. You know, he'd actually, I think as a graduate assistant, he'd actually coached Randy Barnes. But then he, you know, that was nobody his first or second year there. And so, you know, he was a young guy and we became fast friends. And, you know, we were all with me and Randy and Coach Parker, you know, we were all, you know, throwing machines, I guess. So.
So your first year there, did they have to? I know Matson was around and a younger fellow back in the days, and you know he's been on the podcast, and him and I exchange text messages every now and then. What was your first impression of him? Because you know the lore of the Pampa Giant, Randy Matson.
You know, Randy was always I was very blessed to be mentored by two Randys. You know, Randy Barnes.
Yes.
And I don't know if you ever went to Randy's, you know, Randy was pretty much the guy on campus. In other words, he was the director of the Association of Former Students. Everybody thinks the president has the power. The guy who is in charge of the alumni has the, you know, the real power. And so, and I went to alumni functions where, you know, literally all these big time Aggies would just come pouring over to Randy. It's skip everything and just go over to Randy. It's like, oh, you know, Randy Matson, you know, and so he had called for a meeting, I guess, for me to go over to the association, you know, and I went to his office and he sat me down and, you know, he basically humble, the most absolute nicest guy you can imagine ever. And relating to stories about, you know, how he threw and, you know, what kind of inspired him. And we hit it off. And I mean, Randy was always there. In fact, before Barcelona, I got a call from, again, from Randy's secretary and said, "Hey, do you mind swinging by on your way out of town to, head to Barcelona?" And I said, "Great." So I went over there, and it's the only time I've ever seen Randy serious, and he was sitting behind his desk and he just kind of, looking at me. And so finally he pulls out his 2 Olympic medals and he opens them up and he turns them around and he slides them over and he says, "I want you to get a good look at these." So I'm like, wow, I'd seen him before, but I was like, this is awesome. And he said,
Wow.
"If you don't come back with one of those," and I said, "Yes, sir." He goes, "Don't come back." He starts,
Oh,
I'm just messing with it. He goes, "I want to wish you the best of luck." And he goes, we're behind you, man. We're so proud of you." And it just one of those things where Randy was a special guy, I mean, he
Yeah.
was all there for me, and I will never forget what he's meant to me in my throwing career and my life. Super guy.
wow. What a great story.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'd have been like, okay, I'm not gonna go.
So you get there your freshman year, Coach Parker, there's Coach Randy Barnes is there. What was that transition like from, going from, Houston to College Station, Aggie College Station? What was that transition like into your freshman year?
It was great. I loved A&M. I loved everything about it. But the transition from the 12-pound to the 16-pound was awful. I got to admit, I'm one of those that didn't, I wasn't like Randy Barnes, who could easily just jump from 12 to 16 because, he had the speed and the strength to make it a quick leap. For me, it was brutal, and I struggled for a long time. But by the time my hand got transitioned to the 16, in fact, it was so bad at one point that I'd really thought about discontinuing doing the glide, and then I was actually spinning. In fact, I was out at the track one day, and Randy Barnes was teaching me how to spin.
Really?
And Parker walks out there. We called him, I don't know if you knew Robert very well, but no one called him Robert. No one called him Coach Parker. Everybody called him, he wanted to be called Parker,
Yeah.
It's like everybody at A&M called each other by your last name. Like it wasn't Randy Matson, it was Matson, and so Parker walked up and he goes, "What do you think you're doing?" And I said, "Well, sir, I'm trying to spin." He goes, "You're not a spinner." He goes, "Cut that out." He goes, "You're a glider." And so anyway, yeah, and I was throwing a lot further spinning at first. And sure enough,
Really?
stuck with it. And he was right. I don't think I would have turned out as near as far of a distance as I did, spinning, but he had an instinct. I mean, he knew just by looking that, that I was meant to be a glider and not, not to spin. Whereas, I guess it was body geometry, whatever conclusion he came to. But, I talked to a lot of guys after that, and they were like, that was a pretty wise assumption for a young coach.
For sure. Now, do you have big hands? Was it the ball size from that 12 to 16? Because sometimes, that 12-pound, it can be really small for a high school kid, especially if they get used to it. And then all of a sudden they go to college and that 16's the big 127. And they're like, oh my God, it's like a cannonball.
For a shot putter, I probably have, I would say, average size hands. I did use the, what is the largest size? Is it 129 for the men?
Yeah.
So I use the largest size because that's otherwise, if I use anything smaller, it would slip through my fingers and it would actually, hurt my hands. But I wasn't like, if you ever met Michael Carter, ever shook his hands back in his prime, the guy has literally, he has paws the size of a bear, he was huge. And so I didn't have those, basically beefy hands, but I had larger hands. And I don't think that was for me, it was just the timing. It was it took a good 6-9 months, I guess, for me to get used to that 16-pound shot put.
Wow. We were watching video of you on YouTube before we got on and stuff, and I was like, look at this, So you kind of held the elbow kind of underneath your jaw a little bit like Timmerman. Is that something you did in high school?
Oh, no, sir. No, I flat out copied Timmerman on everything I did. Another guy I was blessed to know, there was a Swedish thrower there named Patrick Hennings. And so I was struggling again with the glide. And so we sat down one day and we were in the coach's office, and 8mm film, was what they had the projector in there with Timmerman film. Look, I want to show you something. And he said, look, you're trying to throw the Feuerbach way, the Michael Carter way. He goes, that's not for you. Look at what this guy is doing at East Germany, and let's deconstruct it. Let's go ahead and copy it and basically model it on what you're doing. And the idea there is, when you take that shot, you're basically rotating it as far under the chin as you can. It doesn't make sense, but by the time you actually drive out of the power position into the block, it actually is straight. Your arm's straight back again. Instead of being down here, you're back up. And that's how I was able to get the height. And I think the extension that I did and that was a big secret for me, a big breakthrough, was able to I think probably made a meter difference in my throws. It took months to adjust to doing that, but it actually made probably a solid 3-foot difference in my throw.
Wow. And it was who that showed you this video again?
Patrick Hennings. In fact, he was I think the United States was, there was an old saying here that probably the best coaches that actually ever arrived in the United States were the Swedish athletes who actually then coached American, while they were there. So he helped out early in the weightlifting. I mean, he really a long way there. Randy Barnes was great. He was already developed. He was already somebody who was hitting on all cylinders, and so it was hard for me to keep up. But to develop that, fundamental skill, he was able to transition, help me from the weight room to the track to everything else. I mean, it was really because Parker was great when it came to the spin, and I think he had a fundamental understanding, being a decathlete himself, of the Furback style of glide, but that long stretch reflex glide that the East Germans did. I don't think that knowledge wasn't here in the States at that time. And so it was the Swedes who was Patrick Hennings who taught me how to throw like that. And I think that was the secret of my technical success.
So did he show you, because Timmerman changed a little bit, and we were watching your Barcelona, and then when you were in New Orleans, and you kind of, what I would call double support, where you would gather, and your left foot would kind of tap the ground a little bit, and then you would drive with that long drive to the toe board. Was that initiated from that video, or is that something you kind of changed as you progressed?
The only really thing that I changed from what Timmerman did was I couldn't get down as low as he could, with the hips. I couldn't drive out of the back, and I couldn't hit the stretch reflex properly. In other words, I couldn't get full extension on that. So I had to actually angle up a little bit higher than he did. Other than that, I mean, it was pretty much, I tried one thing and it worked. And I was like, well, I'm going to stick with that and then try it until I perfected it, or at least it worked for me. And I tried pretty much every aspect of his technique, and I set everything else aside, and that was minor tweaks, but otherwise it was Timmerman's technique that I blueprinted off of.
Wow. So on the finish, it kind of, we talked to Cleopatra Burrell, and she kind of had that up and over type approach, just like you said, to get that extra extension. Was that the same verbiage that y'all use? Kind of I don't want to say cartwheel, but kind of that up and over with that right shoulder and that extension. Was that kind of something you kind of developed or tried to duplicate?
It really wasn't for us. It was all about the hips. In fact, I'm gonna hit the power position in the middle. The hips were what actually drove the shot off the neck. And that what as far as extension out of the front of the ring, I kept thinking about driving the hips through, and the arm was just along for the ride. The arm was just basically the balancing on out. It wasn't really in fact, I had a huge problem. If you look at pictures of me at NCAA championships my freshman year, even though I won the thing, I was ducking out of it. I mean, if you see, I'm really pushing back. I wasn't getting full extension on the shot, and it was because a lot of people don't realize with a shot, especially that 16, you try to overpower it, it's gonna whip you. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
It'll push back on you.
You've got to use your hips to drive that thing through. And then the thing is full extension comes really from the lower body. It doesn't come from so much the upper body's along for the ride. At least that was my philosophy when I threw.
Gotcha. Wow. So, you were a 3-time All-American at College Station, won a couple championships. Is there anything during that time that sticks out to you where you had to overcome injury, and then, you got through that and you were successful in the ring? And then also too, we got to ask, did you throw hammer? Did you throw weight?
Never threw the hammer, never threw the weight, never threw the javelin. Discus, I basically threw it as long as I had to, then I stopped. My thing with the discus is I think I could have probably been better at it if I just would have practiced, but I never. In fact, I had there was one of the, if you look at the old Track and Field News, there was one of the old reporters that was there for it was like the Waco Southwest Conference Championships, whatever it was, and he had written that he thought I was either going to win the discus in the NCAA championships or take second place, whatever it was. He predicted high, and everybody kind of laughed and like, "What is this?" But apparently, he saw me. I threw over 180 foot from the front, as far as a front throw. And I didn't even throw that far spinning, it was just something for me. I was injured all the time. And actually when I stopped throwing the discus, then my injuries kind of, but I think it's an injury situation. And I think it's a common situation with shot putters, to where your back, your lower back, until you learn how to actually lift properly. And I think for me, I was probably overdoing it for, too long of a time. And also too, I'd been doing sprints of all things, and I actually pulled a hamstring. And so that hamstring, when I went to extend with the discus, I mean, it's like somebody just taking a hot knife in the back of my leg, you know? And so I had to actually step away from the discus and stick with just the shot. And the coaches were okay. You know, Parker was okay. Coach Thomas was okay with it here. So it was all good.
So let's talk a little bit about your training and stuff. Cause you know, what was a typical week like for y'all? Would y'all lift Monday, Wednesday, Friday, throw every day kind of, you know, cause there's you know, you hear about the great workouts y'all were doing and some of the stuff with the Olympic lifting. What was y'all's usual regimen for the week? And did Parker set up the programming?
You know, he did initially. And then, you know, he was so busy doing other things. And I think he encouraged us, you know, especially myself. He knew Randy. You know, Randy was one of those guys that would travel he'd go out to UCLA, he'd go out to California, he would go out to San Diego and stay with the Noons, and he would gather information. And I think he was one of those guys that was an open book on, you know, very flexible with what, you know, if you can find something that works for you, then he encouraged it. Well, in weightlifting, there was, I went to Houston, you know, multiple times throughout the week to visit my parents. And so there was a gym that was there. It was called Hank's Gym. And so there was a guy that was a weightlifter there. He was old. Basically, he was what do you call it? Defector. You know, he had actually defected from Hungary, and he was, you know, he was a top Olympic lifter. And so he taught me how to lift. He, you know, he tried to encourage me to actually quit shot putting and, you know, and then to go into Olympic lifting. He's like, I think you've got a future in this. And I'm like, I want to try to do a little bit of both. Then I realized you can't walk both worlds at the same time. I mean, you've got to either the other, because Olympic lifting training, it's serious business and it's awesome. But the thing is, it will kill your throwing. And that's what I think. For me, for a long time, I think I overtrained. And I think that's probably the biggest mistake I've made in my career was, I think, trying to train like an Olympic lifter. I mean, because those guys, when we did 20, 30 sets sometimes in the gym in Olympic lifting, we 5 days a week, you know, it was a lot of volume.
Really?
And I would go out there and wonder why my throws were just terrible, you know, and then but when I would back off for throwing season, then my throws would, you know, really take off. And so it's one of those things to where I think you make mistakes. And if I could go back, I think I would change it. But, you know, I did learn a lot by being around Olympic lifters. I think I learned a lot about, especially how to use my hips, you know, how to drive with the hips, because those guys are fanatics with it.
Yeah. So in that training, did y'all do a lot of full clean and jerks, or did y'all kind of progress into different movements, like, you know, like a snatch, high pull or something like that? Was it just 30 sets of clean and jerk or snatch?
No, actually, we would, believe it or not, the algorithm, he had like a chart, this big chart you would flip over. And I guess he had actually taken it with it from Hungary. But basically, it was no workout for probably 6 weeks was the same, ever the same. You had 50 different type of exercises where there was going to be, you know, full cleans, hang clean, box cleans, hip cleans, clean pulls, snatch, one hand, you name it. It was there. And so we always varied the, you know, the not only the volume, but the exercises. I mean, everything changed. It rotated out.
Oh, wow. What about how much compared to front squats to back squats did y'all do?
Well, Olympic lifters don't, at least the guys I worked out with,
They didn't do, okay.
back squatting is taboo. I mean, you just don't do it. In fact, I had a hard time making the transition from being a shot putter, being like a power lifter, to an Olympic lifter, because they also too don't use belts, you know. And so that's the thing. I was so addicted, and the thing is, I had injuries before with the lower back, and so I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. And so it took me a while to actually kind of get used to get weaned off that belt. But when I finally did, you know, I know that I've seen some, like Joe Kovacs has some incredible squats. I mean, that is just mind blowing to watch that. I'm not saying I would ever be close to anything like that, but I never really, unless like Randy Barnes was in town, because he liked the back squat a lot, I would only front squat, you know. So that's the thing, is my front squat was maybe only 100 pounds less than my back squat. I mean, I actually front squatted close to 700 pounds, you know. So, I mean, it was,
wow.
I had a really good, that's what we concentrate on. In fact, it was a solid Olympic lifting, you know, front squat. So,
yeah. How did y'all implement chest then? How did you do bench or incline or anything like that? How did you incorporate that in?
You know, I basically worked it in myself. My personal theory was, because I was a glider and I had a high release, I stopped doing them again, unless Randy was in town. And we were, you know, he would sometimes come in for the fall or come in the spring, and we would actually do flat bench there. But otherwise I would only do incline bench, and I would do it once a week. And, you know, I really wasn't, comparatively speaking, compared to, say, for example, Randy, or compared to other throwers. You know, like Udo Bayer reportedly has had like and I don't know if those rumors are true because I never asked Udo when I threw against him. You know, and we would talk about dogs or other things like that, but we never talked about, because I told him I named a dog after him. So I had a Rottweiler, and I said his name is Udo because he was strong, big, and he laughed. You know, but supposedly he had like a 700-pound bench press. You know, and maybe it was not, but still 700 pounds was 700 pounds, and I wasn't close to that. But for me though, that angle, you know, was what it was all about.
Wow. We have a Rottweiler puppy on a side note, and we named her after Maggie Ewing. So, well, time out. It's actually Maggie Mack. So it was actually Maggie Ewing, Mac Wilkins. So if you know Mac, we named a dog after him.
Cool.
Maggie Ewing would be, it's a cute dog.
Yeah, she would. Yeah, I don't know if she'd be having for anything like that. So after, you know, you win all the NCAA championships, you know, it's time to go pro. Walk us through that experience of going to the trials, you know, going to Barcelona, winning the.
I was gonna
Go ahead.
hang on before.
Sorry.
So college at A&M, you're a thrower and you're a student athlete at A&M. What was your major in, and how did you balance all of that?
I was a journalism major, believe it or not. Yeah, so I really I'm interested in people, and so that was what, you know. So journalism was what it was, you know, and it was not a very popular major. In fact, a few years after I left A&M, they actually dropped the college altogether. I heard it's back again, but they, you know, just wasn't very popular. But I loved it. I know it was great. And you know, balancing, to me, it was tough. You know, because the thing is you work out. Back then, there was no limit on hours like there are now. And to be quite honest with you, though, too, I along with Randy Barnes and the rest of us, after the rest of the track team went home, we went to the gym. We went, you know, there was a student weight room that was open until midnight, you know, and so we would go in there and work out when everybody else was, you know, almost in bed. So, I mean, we were fanatics about it. So, when you do that type of things, you know, it's tough to actually balance school, but I managed the average grades, but, you know, stayed in and did well and enjoyed it.
Yeah. So as you're training with him and you see what he's doing, you know, in the ring and stuff, are y'all talking about, you know, going to the Olympics and going out and breaking world records at the time? Was that kind of the mentality / motivation to push each other?
You know, Randy Barnes had an unshakable faith in his abilities. I mean, that guy literally, when he put his mind to it, there was nothing he couldn't do. And then actually just being along with him for the ride was inspiration for me to say, okay, you know what? I can do one more rep, or I can actually take one more throw, or I can do this, you know? And so I think seeing somebody like that really doesn't know the meaning of, you know, quit, you know, that was something that was, I needed for me, for sure, you know, because I don't think if Randy wouldn't have been there, I don't know if I would have pushed as hard, you know, to do what I did if, you know, somebody like that weren't there to, you know, to push you.
Yeah, for sure.
Now you can go back to your question. Sorry, I just have to add, we have so many kids who listen to our podcast, and, you know, the stress of a student athlete is the same today as it was, you know, however many years ago it was you were a college athlete.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Meredith McGee, and my father is the founder of Porta Circle. We created Porta Circle in order to make throwing more accessible so that you can truly train anywhere. Growing up in Rochester, weather was often a roadblock toward training, and having the Porta Circle was a lifesaver for both the indoor and outdoor season. Circles start at $149, and go to our website to learn more. www.porta-circle.com. Porta Circle, making training convenient.
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, walk us through, you know, going to the trials, getting ready for the 92 Olympics, and, you know, your mental approach, kind of like how would you approach mentally? Just like what Janelle said, we have kids who are, you know, kind of timid and kind of naive, and I know I want to do this, but I'm scared to do this because I'm scared to fail. Kind of what was your mental approach to throwing at, you know, during the meets?
You know, I think I was like probably anybody else out there. You know, everybody's scared to fail. But the thing is, I began to realize that, you know what, it was my failures that were my strengths. In other words, those are what inspired me to go out there and work twice as hard. I think winning for me wasn't as big of a deal as my best, I think, jumps, my leaps, and my technical abilities, my throwing came from my failures, for sure. My freshman year, for example, it was kind of an off year. It wasn't really that strong of a year I won the NCAA championships my freshman year in shot with 62 feet. It wasn't a very, very far throw for back then. But then I went and tried to throw at the World Junior Championships. I took second place, and that was a humbling experience because I wasn't used to international competition. The Russians were there. I mean, and it was tough. The psychological game was huge because they would get off your periphery, they would mess with you, they'd walk up, and it was just one of those big type of games. And the next year when I went out and trained, I thought, you know what? No matter what happens, if they drop a nuclear bomb off in this stadium, I'm never going to know it. I'm never going to feel it. I don't care. I'm going to go through it, and I'm going to be tougher. I'm going to be stronger. And that kept motivating me to go out there. And so it's really those losses. You would think I'd go back in the College Station my sophomore year and just kick back on, okay, I'm an NCAA champion. No, for me, it was about, I don't ever want to lose like that again, and so I went up throwing close to 69 feet the next year, so it was just that keep pushing, don't quit.
Yeah. I have to ask current question. Does it eat you that you're third all time in the on the A&M shot put record board?
I'll tell you, I'm in great company. If you're behind Randy Manson and Randy Barnes, that's, you're in good company. So yeah, I walk in the Coach Henry's office. In fact, we were there for, I don't know if you knew it, but Robert Parker and also Ed Marson Cabbage, they had a dedication, a bench and whatnot, beautiful, type of ceremony. And so went to visit Coach Henry afterwards up in his office. And so I'm looking at those records and I'm thinking, I'm in great company, so I can't complain.
Yeah. I do a lot of traveling, going to meets and talking with a lot of current coaches and stuff like this. And we always kind of get in this topic of, who's the best they've seen and they like this technique and this thrower. And one question I always ask is, I said, do y'all know who 8 all time is on the NCAA and for shot put listing? And nobody ever knows. And it's Randy Matson, 1968. I just get the biggest kick that you see 2015, 2014, 2002, 1968.
And that's something. He was far ahead of time. It's unreal.
Oh yeah, for sure. And even we had Togo on, the discus thrower from Germany. We gave him a hard time too because Matson is first on discus as well. And I'm like, come on, dude. He you mean 10 years prior he out threw you? Come on.
Yeah.
What a tremendous athlete. So getting back to Barcelona, your mindset going in there, did you feel like the gold was yours? You got the pep talk from Matson, like you said earlier, because this was the big stage for you. This was the big stage. Kind of walk us through that experience. Going to Barcelona, did you do the ceremony walk? Did you do all that? What was it like in the village?
I didn't. I had actually talked to Randy Barnes before, and he was like, that was one of the things that he really was glad that he didn't do in Seoul. He'd actually heard about the fact that the opening ceremonies, because the shot put is the first Olympic gold medal round in track and field, so you're up early. So rest those legs, and then he actually did not go through the opening ceremonies, and so I decided to skip opening ceremonies as well.
Okay.
Another thing is, though, too, there's a lot of distraction. The Olympic Village, even though you see it on TV, and even when Randy told me about it, I couldn't understand until I actually got there. You've got 10,000 athletes. It is a huge, it's just phenomenal. It's overwhelming. And so you can get kind of wrapped up in all that stuff. And the shorter you can be there, and the more you can concentrate on what you're doing. And so I was actually in Spain at the time. I was actually in a town called Salamanca. I was pretty close. In fact, the Cubans, which was really intimidating because I'd never been around the Cubans before. And I always heard, what a tough bunch that was, and so I get there, and a buddy of mine that, we went to stay with, because he came to the States here and he invited me to say, look, he goes, if you make the Olympic team this year, I own a gym in Salamanca, Spain. He goes, why don't you come stay with me and my wife, and you and your wife, you're always welcome. And so sure enough, I took him up on it. I said, well, we'll go see what it's like. And when I get there, lo and behold, who's there? The East Germans. And so I'm there the Cubans rather, but I was talking to this friend of mine and I said, how on earth? Because, he kept on, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. In fact, it was just as advanced, if not more advanced than what the Swedes were teaching me. And I said, I stopped and I was watching him throw 50 feet in the shot. And I said, okay, I just wanted to ask you, I said, where on earth, how do you know this? He said, well, the East Germans also train here too. He goes, they did winter training this year, but he goes, I talk to Timmerman's coach all the time. And I'm like, wow. So anyway, I was like a sponge at that point and soaking up as much as I could before I went to the games. And so by the time I get to the village, Randy had actually called, Randy Barnes. He called to wish me luck, and he said, look, he goes, here's the strategy. He goes, Gunter is, if he's there on basically his own terms, he's unbeatable. He goes, the only way I've been able to beat him in Switzerland is you've got to go ahead and basically stay calm, wait till the warm-ups. And he said, I know that warm-ups don't count for anything. They basically are really irrelevant. He said, but you've got to win the warm-ups. If you win the warm-ups, you get into his head, and he's going to be thinking about you, and you can get him off. And I thought, man, that is, even though it's great advice, I was thinking, gosh, how do you pull it off? And so, I got there, and basically I, took, light warm-up throws, and basically you have what's called qualifying. You go out there.
Yeah. If
you get past the mark, then you're in. They haul you off the stadium, and then you go to the village and wait till the night, because it's in the same day. And so basically I did the minimum effort I could. I made sure that I actually got out of there in one throw, and so did he. And so we get back the afternoon, and I basically warmed up, just really super light, just kind of stepping through the motions. And so you get 2 throws. That's it in warm-ups in order in the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, I said, okay, here's number 1. And I basically let it out there. Boom. I hit it as hard as I could. And he got up and started watching it. And I was like, okay, I got his attention. And I did the same thing on the second one. And then now, basically it's one of those things, is trying to play chess, is trying to actually position your throws. And I try to make sure that, my first throw, I just kept improving and trying to keep improve. And, it worked out the way it did. But Werner Gunther is a great guy. And he is obviously one of the all-time throwers who's ever lived. And so this guy is a fierce competitor. I can't have total respect for him, can't say enough about him. And it was just an honor to throw against him there in Barcelona.
Wow.
I
So,
love that.
so they didn't measure those 2 warm-up throws, but was that better than the official meet throw?
It sure looked like it. They didn't measure. It sure looked like it. It was the best 2 throws I've ever had. So.
Oh yeah. That is so great that Barnes would give you that, because you don't win the warm-up throw, hold back, but in that situation it was, excuse my French, but kind of balls to the walls. Let's show him what we have, and seeing that gets out of his psyche, the true mental approach to that thing.
Exactly. Just get him thinking about it, get him out of his game, and maybe go there thinking, hey, this guy might actually, be some competition. And so, and this, same thing I threw against them. They had the World Cup the same year they had the Olympics. And so I went to Havana, Cuba, of all places, got to see my Cuban buddies down there. And so,
Yeah.
and same thing. I thought, I'm going to try the same tactic, see if it works. And I realized, what? It's, what Texas is like in the summer. Texas is blazing hot. Cuba makes Texas look tame. I mean, Cuba is fire and the down there in the Mediterranean. I mean, in the Caribbean, and so but I'm growing up in Houston. I'm used to humid. I'm used to hot, and I saw them over there about ready to melt. And so I knew that this is maybe I'll have this. I don't have to actually try to win the warm ups.
For sure. So do you still watch throwing currently? Do you keep up with what's going on in the US and, Ryan breaking, Barnes's shot put record?
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. I love watching Ryan Krauser throw. Joe Kovacs to the whole bunch. I mean, it's such an exciting time for throwing, back in the day, if you would have asked me if this was possible, especially when Randy set that world record at 70, when he beat Timmerman's world record at 75-10,
yeah.
I thought, and maybe being a little bit arrogant, I thought no one's ever going to beat that. That's just not humanly possible to do it. And now Krauser's just crushed it. And then, basically here you got, all great throwers. It's a great time to be a track fan for sure. I don't actually, I used to try to travel to a lot of the meets. If it was something local here in Texas, I would go and watch it. But, with my daughter and everything else, we haven't been as much as we would like, but definitely love watching them on TV.
Oh, awesome.
I have to ask, when you came home with that gold medal, did you call Mr. Matson's secretary and go to his office and show him your gold medal and say, I get to come back?
He was one of the first to call me, and basically, I went over to his office again. I didn't bring my medal with me. I went. I should have. Anyway, I walked in, and he was so happy for me. I mean, it meant a lot to me. It was one of the best moments I've ever had. Going in there, and how proud he was of me. I mean, that almost brought me to tears. I mean, I was pumped up. Here's my hero growing up as a kid. And he's telling you that he's proud of you. I mean, that's the best you could ever hope for.
Wow.
You can't beat that.
So I got to ask this question because I want to know your opinion. Is the glide dead? What's your perception of everybody doing rotational and getting away from the glide? Maybe not on the girl side, but on the boy side. What's your overall opinion? And is it gender Pacific?
As much as I hate to admit it, I think probably when it comes to male throwers, it sure looks like if it's not dead, it's on its way out. And I think a lot of it too, for example, Ryan Krauser's coach in college was an Aggie. He was a javelin thrower that threw here. Super nice guy. But anyway, he had called me one time, and he had a female thrower that came in from California. This is back when Ryan was still in college. And anyway, his name's Ty Seven. And Ty was like, do you think you can teach me how to the glide, as far as let's go with the specifics of the glide. And so I said, I'd be happy to, and so I said, well, what's going on? He says, well, he goes, there's no knowledge here in this country on the glide. I think if there was somebody that can teach it, I think if they were just willing to actually, because I've watched a lot of the gliders now, and there's so much more. I mean, there's been some good gliders, especially the female side. It's just that knowledge gap that they've got. I think if they just had a little bit more knowledge, if somebody could, the Eastern European style of throwing, if they could teach that to them, I think it'd be back for sure.
Yes. I think, in my opinion, because we're about the same age, because I grew up, worshiping you, but the first videotape that VHS was the Al Feuerbach, Matt Wilkins tape. And so that generation of gliders learned how to throw like Al Feuerbach. Well, Al was a hellacious Olympic lifter.
Yes.
And if you're a short, fat guy from East Texas, that might not have been benefit you. But you have coaches who try to implement those same results in regardless of their skill level to these kids in the glide, and you just don't see the results. That's kind of my perspective.
And I know I'm biased because I'm a glider myself, and I think Al Feuerbach did if you're a certain body type, in other words, if you're Al's height, there's probably been no one who's done more than Al did as far as somebody who is basically doesn't have the long levers that you see of the throwers. And definitely, if you are at that height range, male or female, then you're going to throw like Al Feuerbach. Michael Carter was very similar to that. But at the same time, though, too, the guys that are like myself, 6'2" to 6'5", even 6'6", there's really no place for them here in this country to go to learn, the glide. And so that's the frustrating thing. And I think a lot of coaches then turn around and get frustrated because I know, like even Ty, for example, it's one of those things to where I could, we were talking and I was basically trying to send him basically videos on Facebook here and on email and whatnot. And it's just not the same as being there in person. So I think if you get one of these developmental coaches that actually can do that, one of your current coaches that can teach the glide, I think it'll make a comeback. But what do I know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'll say, when we interviewed Randy Matson, he asked him that same question about Ron Krauser, and Randy said that spinning was cheating. He said spinning is cheating. So we actually put it on a shirt.
Yeah, I have the shirt on. I wore it just for y'all.
Put it.
I don't want to raise it, just show my belly.
Spinning is cheating, Randy Matson.
Awesome. Yeah. I need to buy one shirts for me. I need to.
I'll send you one. I sent him one. I told him to take a picture of it and send it to me, but he didn't do that. I'll send you one. I'm curious. I want to know you because you talked about Timmerman and a couple others. If you had to pick besides yourself, top 5 gliders all time, male or female, who would they be in your perspective?
Oh gosh, I don't think the discussion would be complete without Valerie Adams for sure. I think she did a lot for. I don't know if you know her coach was Jean-Pierre Ager, and I met Jean-Pierre Ager in, Switzerland there and very knowledgeable. I'm talking about top-notch coach. So I think she's got to be in the discussion. Udo Beyer for sure. I know that people make fun of Udo's technique and everything else, but there's a lot of things that Udo did right that I think even today there's throwers that just, the gliders of my day even just didn't do it as good as Udo did some things. So Andre from Italy, I mean, that guy, talking about hip power, that guy could crank from the middle for sure. I tried and tried to be like Andre. I could never do it, or just to have that hip drive out of the center. So
Yeah. Well, one thing I liked about him, he was a little taller in the back too, almost like in that double support, a little bit more vertical, and he would drop down, just drop and drive across.
yeah, he had that massive stretch reflex out of the back. When he overloaded the hamstrings there, and when he actually rocked off of that heel, I think there's very few that have done it. Maybe Timmerman, you can argue, did it better, but he was definitely a dynamic glider coming across. He did a lot of things right, and that was exciting times to be. In fact, that was kind of my Olympic dream, because here I walked into the tent there in Barcelona, and I was scared. I got to admit, there's no way you can say that you're not going to be scared when you walk in there, because it's just, you got to fight the fear, you got to get over it and get past it, and so sure enough, when I walk in, it's the Lions Den. There's this big tent there. And so over here to my right, you've got Udo Beyer, Ulf Timmerman sitting there, and Andre together, all talking and all stretching. And then over here, you've got Gunter. You've got, was it Bodemuller from Austria? Then you've got the Russian Klemenko. They got the BB and the Junior World Championships. You got them all there, 2 packs. And I'm like, oh, where do I go? So Timmerman looks up at me and he actually waves me over. I'm like, oh, I don't know if this is a good idea or a bad idea, but I'm going to take a leap of faith. I'm going to go over there. So I sit down and these guys are all in a circle there and we're stretching. And he says, what do you think about today? And I said, well, it's going to be a fun day, I think. And he said, no, he said, well, how do you think, as far as your chances? And I said, I'm as good as anybody, I hope. And he said, no, he said, I think you'll beat him. So it's Timmerman that actually gave me that boost. And I looked over and I said, well, you guys, he goes, no, our time is gone. He goes, but today's going to be your day.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
I had goosebumps when I heard that. I mean, talk about it, just a boost of, basically confidence. I mean, I just shot off the roof there, so we walked to that stadium. I was ready.
Wow. Because I don't know the answer to this. And I just thought, who else was part of the U.S. team for throwings there that went with you to Barcelona?
So there was Jim Doring from San Diego, and then from Minnesota, there was Ron Backus. So those were the 3 Americans.
Okay.
And then Jim got a silver.
Yeah. Who the discus throwers for that team that year?
Tony Washington, I think Brian Blutrick, and no discussion is complete without Brian. I mean, that guy has become the preeminent coach here in this country. That guy's phenomenal. Yeah. And gosh, who was the third? Oh, Mike Bunsick.
Bunsick. Okay.
Yeah. Great guy too. Talk about
had to be some fun. That had to be some fun training environment, prepping to go out there.
Yeah, Mike. Well, Tony is. I don't know if you ever met Tony Washington or talked to him very much, but talking about a down to earth, one of the most level-headed guys and hardworking throwers you'll ever meet. And then Mike Bunsick's along those same lines, very cerebral, very, And I didn't really know. I competed against Brian when I was in school at A&M. He was at UCLA, so we were competitive. I didn't know him that well, but liked him. Nice guy. And then, especially now that he's actually gone out there and coached, I mean, I have tons of respect for him. So.
Yeah, what he's done. He's in Oregon now. I don't know if you know that. So.
I heard that. Yeah, they're going to build a pretty good program, I think. So.
Yeah, he's got the girl that Van Klinken girl from the Netherlands over now. And cool thing about her, I think she was no longer. She was the U18 world record holder as a youth, and she was a glider. And she was a phenomenal glider. And if you would Google her as a youth on YouTube, you would see her glide. And there's a lot of Bruner, a lot of Timmerman mixed in there a little bit as well. And you're talking about that vertical, through the hips, popping the ball out, just like it. And for her to make the transition from a glider to a rotational, what she's doing now, and being she made the distics in the Olympics. Just an unbelievable talent for sure. So all right. So you gave me 3. Do you have 2 more on the glide list?
Well, let's see. Adams, Timmerman, Beyer, Andre, and Gunter. I think the list will be, as far as modern, Randy Matson obviously is the guy who, if you take a look at the era, and I think if you compare present to past to the time that went before, there was nobody like Randy Matson. You have to put him at number 1 on gliders all time, no doubt about it. In fact, I still marvel at, there's a guy out of the Netherlands that actually shares videos at Gerloff. I don't know if you've seen him or not, but on Facebook, but he had a video of Randy Matson throwing in a meet I've never seen before. And I just marveled at his technique for the 60s, for the mid 60s. It's incredible, the intuitiveness that he had back then. And considering, you probably talked to Randy then about, Randy did virtually zero weightlifting.
Yes.
I mean, the guy was a basketball player, an absolute stud basketball player too, not just discus, but basketball. So overall, incredible athlete.
Yeah, he told us the story of how he came to A&M. Was part of that was the weight program, and them. I think there was the strength and not necessarily the strength and conditioning coach at the time, but like a graduate assistant or somebody that he worked with on campus that was maybe from Russia or someplace in Europe that was going to help him put weight on and stuff and develop mass and stuff. And that was kind of the influence for him to go to A&M and stuff. So getting to you just got inducted, I think 4 to 5 years ago, in 2004 in the Texas A&M Hall of Fame. What was that experience like for you? And just kind of walk us through the call and the feeling and the induction and all that, because that had to come, your throwing career had to come full circle then.
No, it was incredible. In fact, I was in the store, and they had come by. In fact, it might have been, if memory serves me correct, I think it was Coach Henry, current coach here at A&M and Hall of Fame, level coach himself. And so I know that Randy Barnes and I were inducted at the same time. And so that meant the world to me to go in with Randy, and then also too, Dat Wynn from, the linebacker from A&M and football. Mm-hmm. That was a great class that went in, and it's hard to describe, what kind of that gala that they have for the Hall of Fame induction. Amazing, just off the charts. A&M does such a good job with, the former students who are, football, basketball, baseball, all sports, just incredible.
Wow. That's
awesome.
Very good. So I'm my brain's running out of questions to ask and stuff like that. I can't think of anything now. I'm like, we got to ask you something else. I can't think of anything else. When's the last time you threw?
That's a good one.
Oh gosh, 30 years ago, I guess. Yeah.
You have not picked up a shot put since then, not even like just doing little flicks. Come on, man.
Yeah, I've gone out with helping, various kids out. I've my nephew, when he started throwing the shot put, I kind of helped him out, but he was a spinner. And so that's the thing. It was difficult for me in fact, that's the thing it's probably easier for me to teach him to spin than it was the glide, because I'd watched and competed with or trained with Randy for so long that, in fact, I hated the idea of going out with throwing Randy, because literally I could see the spin and I could see him in the ring, just his footwork all the time. So I had to turn my back on him when he's in there throwing. Then, he would say, "Hey, how was that?" Or "What did it look like?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm not watching anymore." So, but besides small stuff like that, I haven't, I guess I've been so busy with, work and with, family that I haven't had a chance to go out.
I'll ask this. Do you still talk to Randy? Do y'all still communicate currently? What's he doing nowadays?
Randy Matson or Randy Barnes?
No, Randy Barnes.
Randy Barnes is, he's back home in St. Albans, I think, and so is with family there. I message on Facebook every now and then, but unfortunately, I wish he lived closer. I wish I could go visit him, but unfortunately, it's just distance, and he's got a family, so it's tough.
Yeah, I totally understand.
Life gets in the way.
Life gets in the way. Sir, it has been an honor. Thank you for sharing knowledge, your experience, everything with us. I am a fan favorite.
He could talk to you about technique all day long.
So
I don't know that anyone else in the world would listen. I'm just kidding. They would listen, but
and I grew up trying to throw like Al Feuerbach. When I was a freshman in high school, I threw really far, but I never got any better. And I probably improved like 6 or 7 feet or inches, and that was it. And I never got any better. And it never dawned on me that I couldn't get in the positions and the flexibility that he was. So I'm a big advocate of Valerie Adams, and I'm a big advocate of Gong, the girl from China currently, in that kind of that right, left mentality, just driving from the earth in your hips. I kind of use the verbiage, the over the top with the release for our kids. And you don't have to be a great athlete to getting those positions to move the ball with force, to move it that far, like maybe, with the Al Feuerbachs and some of those other guys and stuff like that. So I've always copied Timmerman, your videos. One of my favorites is like Cleopatra Burrell. Cleopatra and Valerie Adams are really good friends. I don't know if you know anything about Cleopatra, but she is currently the throws coach at UT Rio Grande Valley. First coaching job ever. She's was retired, did a couple things on her own, but she just got all through the NCAA credentials, and this is her first outdoor-indoor season down there. So
Wow.
not only do we have you in the state of Texas, but we have one of the greatest female gliders to ever, spread that. So I asked her the same question. So hopefully we can, bring everybody together to create a better glide.
Well, if I can ever do anything, don't hesitate to ask. I'll be happy to, any
Sure.
input that you need, I'll be happy to help.
Yeah, and I look. I come to A&M a lot because me and Chico are pretty good friends. In fact, a girl that was on my team that I trained and she's a glider, and she's currently at A&M.
Oh yeah. She just hit 49 feet, right? Oh, does he know her?
Oh.
Macy Irons.
Maybe so. In fact, there was at that throwing clinic that I did, there was a thrower out there, and that might have been, I may be wrong, but that might have been her. So yeah, definitely tall, about 6 foot tall.
Yeah, real thick, real muscular. She's about 5'10".
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's a glider. She just went 49.6 yesterday, and now that's 5th all time for indoor marks at A&M.
Awesome, man. I'm looking forward to watching her throw.
Yeah.
A bum this year though, because A&M's got the stadium renovation there, and there's no meets indoor outdoor this year. So my wife and I usually have season tickets, to both of them, and now we're just kind of what are we gonna do?
Yeah, I know.
I know. We used to go to that indoor meet at A&M and miss.
Yeah, I know. What's your opinion on A&M being the SEC?
Oh, I think it's awesome. I think it's, I wish I could say I was more of a football fan. Especially my old buddies who played football, I support it. We go to the games sometimes.
Yeah.
As far as track though, I am ecstatic. As far as, you got LSU, you got Florida. Florida's a powerhouse. You got such great competition that's there. And now, you've got, look at, one of my old buddies, Connie Price Smith is over there at, Ole Miss. She's doing great. So I'm pretty pumped up to see, the.
That's awesome.
Did you ever think about getting into coaching? Like, did you ever think about, okay, I got this business on the side, I think I might want to be a college coach? Did you ever think about that?
No, never really. And the reason why is our first several years in business, it was all we had time to do was to eat, sleep, and work. And that was about it, trying to build up our business. And then finally, when we got enough free time, we decided, hey, we better have a family before it's too late. And so in our 40s, that's, wife and I had our daughter. And so we hadn't looked back since. I'm happy to, occasionally people will come in and ask me, like, meet them at the high school here to help them out. But unfortunately, I just don't have time to be a full-time coach.
Yeah, for sure.
So is your daughter going to be a thrower?
Javelin.
I think she's gonna be a little bit too big for that. She's 9 years old. I hope she's definitely gonna have the size. And this year we're gonna maybe try to start out in the shot and the discus and see how it goes. But she's got such long levers. In fact, when she was a baby, Randy Matson had her in his hands there, and I thought, man, it's just me. And he was, holding her there at one of the track reunions, and he's like, good grief. He goes, she has huge hands. She's gonna be a discus thrower.
That's awesome.
That is great. He was like, she's going to be an engineer. No, she's going to solve cancer. No, she'll throw discus.
Well, funny you mentioned that. That's what she wants to be. Is her grandfather, my father-in-law, was an engineer, and that's what she's in that GT program, and they take him up to A&M every couple months of the engineering department. And she's pumped to be an engineer.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Awesome. That is awesome,
That is
sir.
awesome.
Thank you so much. It is a pleasure. You're one of the all-time best U.S. throwers in the history. I want you to know that, and thank what you've done for the sport. Thank what you've done for A&M, and thank you too for throwers like myself coming up to watch what you throw, because you are an inspiration to a lot of us who have a passion for throwing. So thank you so much.
And thank you so much for having me on.
So, all right, thank you so much. It's a pleasure. God bless you. We'll see you down the road. So, and if I ever have any glide questions, you're the man I'm calling for
Anytime.
sure.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. We'd like to thank Mike for being on. the one thing that sticks out is you just never know what path your life is going to take. And, injury is during sophomore year of high school, being in the weight room, his coach finding him and telling him he's going to be out in the shop putting the discus in the track the next day. And now, win state championship, gold medal, and, in the Texas A&M Hall of Fame. What a great experience. But what a cool experience is he was in an era where going to compete against the East Germans, some of the best throwers of our history in throwing. And he was a part of that, of being a part of that, and having stories of competing against those guys, and, having mentors like Randy Barnes and Randy Matson to motivate and push him to be better. Just, the throwing community kind of takes care of his own, and he is one definitely to be a part of that.
No, he said some really great stuff we talked about being scared to fail and how everybody's scared to fail. It's the people who use that failure as a success. I don't know if that's exactly how I said it, but how every failure you had just led him to something.
Yeah.
To something better.
Yeah.
That's true.
And for those people to reach that point, there needs to be a little bit of obsession with it, to be able to put in the grind, to lift and work that hard, to go get a degree in journalism. But after, when everybody's training, to go into the student center and still just work and just work to be put in that position when the time comes to go out and be successful, for sure. So
we're glad he got to come back from Barcelona.
Yeah,
gold medal.
Gold medal back. Yeah. So 1992 gold medal in the shot put, and then in 1993 won gold in the indoor worlds with a lifetime PR. We should have said this earlier: 2177, outdoors 2170. So not bad, right at that 22-meter mark. And I love the fact that too, that mentality of letting it all out in the warm-ups. And kind of letting your opponents know that, all right, I'm not here to play, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, we want to thank our sponsors for season 6, Texas Track and Field Coaches Association. Go to ttfca.org for all the latest in Texas track and field. It's high school track season is rolling, or about to start rolling once we've got all the ice melted around here. So yeah, go check out. There'll be results from meets in there. Just tons and tons of information, so go look at that. If you're looking for some implements, fourthrows.com. Use the code TalkingThrows10 to get 10% off. Again, track season is going, so go get you shot puts, discus, Porta Circles, porta-circle.com. Use the code TalkingThrows10 to get you a Porta Circle, even though spring is probably pretty close. Man, having a Porta Circle even is just an extra area to get some drills in while you're out of practice is great to have. If you're in the Austin area, Ready Up AD, go give Zach Phillips a call at 512-507-8347. And then make sure and check out, he has a program on the Train Heroic website called Basic Throw Strength. Go look at that program, and if you use the code THROWS10, you'll get 20% off.
Hello, Talking Throws Texas podcasters. I'm Bruce Caldwell. I'm here today to introduce the Fiber Sport Discus. Yes, many of you thought I only made great vaulting poles. I have been bringing quality discuses to the throwers' hands for over 40 years. First as Cantabrian USA representative, then for the past 10 years as the Nelco discus distributor. I introduced the yellow-plated discus for the plastic's best durability. If your Fiber Sport discus breaks, we replace it. Our studies have reached into the science of using a wind tunnel and adding microchips to the discus to find the spin, the gravity, the flight stability of the discus. We have found it's not about rim weight anymore. It's more about creating a balanced stability to allow the discus to fly and surf the wind. Our new Fiber Sport discus is made to be selected to fit your needs, no matter the weather, no matter the conditions. Check out our discus selection guide at fibersportdiscus.com and find a dealer in your area that sells our fine product. Thank you, Jason Janelle, for allowing me to talk with your listeners on Talk and Throws Texas Style.
And then go to throwingfactory.com. We got coaches ready to teach kids how to glide. Oh, and how to do other things too. So, but
Scott Hammer, Javelin Coach Kai, Coach Jarvis, Coach Night Power Performance, and Coach Janelle with our youth.
awesome.
Lifting DFW Human Performance. We're doing individual Olympic lifting. We're doing team workouts. We're doing personal training. The website's about to change. Janelle's going to be doing health coaching through there now as well. We're going to be selling merchandise through the site. So we're really going to start ramping up our business, the Lifting DFW in 2023 to get the ball rolling in that. So anything you can do in that area, please let us know, especially if you're a female. If you want to excel in any sport, lifting, Olympic lifting is going to get you over the top. We've seen that just by our core group of kids coming out and lift and the results they're doing, in throwing, but also in the other sports as well.
Or if you're not an athlete in high school, if you're a little older, like some of us, Olympic lifting has been, I don't lift heavy weights, but the movement and the stuff that helps the flexibility is just awesome to keep yourself moving. So. All right. Thank you guys.